Well, hello again. Pastor Ray Barnett here, welcoming you to another edition of God's Answers for Anxiety and Depression. As always, I wish you a good morning, a good afternoon, or a good evening, depending on what time you're watching this broadcast. Hey, today, another beautiful day. 66, 67 degrees, low humidity, bit breezy. I want to show you something I got here. You've probably been able to see once in a while on my microphone. I'm hoping that this is actually picking up pretty well. It's a crazy looking, if you can see it, that's a windscreen. Came with this microphone when I bought it, and I forgot that I had it. So I'm going to try it out today because with the leaves still on the trees and the wind, of course it's being autumn now, the wind coming through every so often, I'm thinking this may be a good option. So we'll see. All right, let me start off today by saying that I'm very appreciative of your prayers for me. I am a cardiac patient. I did have open heart surgery in 2008, that's 12 years ago. And typically, as heart disease advances, bypass only holds up so long and arteries continue to get clogged. However, I put myself on what I call a common sense diet about 6-7 months ago. And what I did is I kept track of everything that went in my mouth with an app. And I've done this before, and it never really did much. Other diets, that I kind of invented. But yeah, about 6 months ago, right when the COVID thing started, which had nothing to do with the diet, I decided to watch everything that went into my mouth concerning how much cholesterol it had, how much fat content, sugars, stuff like that. I gave up all processed foods, anything in the bottle, bag, can, box. I won't eat it. I even began to give up a few other things that I've never been much of a sweets person. Thankfully, I don't have a sweet tooth, so I haven't battled with the refined sugars too much. But anyway, I just put myself on this diet, and it's been working very well. First 8 weeks, I dropped my glucose levels almost 30 points. From my HB1AC was just at 7, which is actually what inspired me to start getting. I've always eaten well. Clean, But this is exceptionally strict, self-imposed. Now, it wasn't a doctor put me on. I did it myself. And in 8 weeks, my HB1AC went from a 7 to a 5.7. My triglycerides dropped in half. Cholesterol has always typically been good. I am on medication as a heart patient. But that came down. High density HDL went up. LDL was low. A very, very good report. In any case, I still have to always be careful about many things. And I think I could use this story to tie into our lesson. For me, particularly as a cardiac patient, and by the way, this runs in my family. My father had 7 brothers. I had 7 uncles on the Barnett side. Every one of them had open heart surgery. My grandfather died at 38 from heart disease, had a heart attack, massive heart attack. 38 years old, my grandfather. My dad died at 70 from heart disease, and all my uncles had it. Interestingly, my grandmother on my mother's side had her first open heart surgery at 78, and my mother had her open heart surgery at 85. So I guess you could say it runs on both sides of my family, but especially on the Barnett side. Well, what I wanted to say is that, of course, I've got to watch diet. Exercise comes second nature to me. Got my first workout today on my very light workout too. After 6 months laying off of weights, I got to test out my Bowflex machine, and it'll work. Can't still wait. It'll be a supplement now to the gym when I get to really get back and hit the iron. But it just felt good to do it. So exercise always came second nature to me. I just love to work out. So I don't have a problem there. As I said, I'm a very strict individual. When I make up my mind to do something, there's no deviation. So diet, it's dialed in pretty good. But there's two other things that, at least in, I hate the word alternative medicine because it makes it sound like you're talking about something weird. But Western medicine, I think, has a lot to learn about sickness and disease. And with that, there's several models out there for cardiac patients in particular. And along with exercise, diet, meditation is thrown in now to this particular model. I've been doing that all my life as well, so another check, things I don't have to work on. But stress. It may be hard for you to conceive, whatever your conception is of ministry, how much it can ruin your health. For instance, in years past, it was just known among ministers primarily how ministry can just devastate your health. I mean, you're dealing with people, and I have told people, I may have told you, ministers will hear more than any other occupation on the planet, more than police officers, more than lawyers, more than even many professional counselors, psychologists, and psychiatrists. Ministers are still number one on the list that people will talk to and share some of their innermost problems, secrets, other stuff. You know, I never found that stressful. I honestly don't. I like helping you. I like helping people. I don't find it stressful. However, in the ministry, it doesn't end there. It's not just stepping up to the pulpit, looking good, sounding good, and then you go home. It has a dynamic that's very difficult to explain to someone unless you're a preacher, unless you've done it. Just so many dynamics. I'll let that go with that. Point is that stress in our lives, for all of us, is a critical factor in something we must get under control. I think that you should be able to readily recognize how stress is affecting your anxiety levels, panic attacks, and your depression. If not, then factor in that not managing stress well is going to advance, and certainly obviously won't help, your problems with anxiety and depression. One of the things, I had a discussion with my wife just the other night, something I've repeated. One factor that I've discovered in reading and all the reading that I've done over the years, that you'll find with sickness and disease, I mean any kind, is fear. Fear is one thing that you'll find with that you'll find this in all these patients. Look it up for yourself if you're interested in it. Just see how many visits to a doctor are stress related, even though it's a heart problem, stomach problem, aches and pains, arthritis, all this stuff. And these are done by reputable universities and medical colleges and others that are out there who are, again, reputable people. Stress is very, very detrimental. Now again, I would assume that you would be able to recognize stress and how it's affecting your anxiety or causing it. and your depression, but I won't just go on an assumption. I'll explain it to you. Yesterday, I shared with you that life is not fair. And I should amend that a little bit by saying that life does not seem to be fair. But when we put God into the equation, God is over all. Constantly watching over you is what I meant. Constantly, well, let me say it this way, thinking about you, but what I mean is 1 Peter 5:7, casting all your cares upon him. Now, this is a verse we've had recently, a week or so back, because he cares for you. See, this takes God out of the realm of some nebulous being up there that we can't figure him out. And I'm not saying that we can figure God out. I haven't. And I haven't read anybody that has. But to actually think that God actually cares about me, that it matters to him what happens to me, is a very encouraging thought. And I want you to look at that verse. Again, you could pause the tape, the broadcast, go get a Bible, open it up, and read it for yourself. Highlight it. Memorize it. Casting all your care. Care, merimna, is the Greek word that underscores that English word care, and it means anxiety. It also means to be pulled apart by distractions. The idea of being pulled apart, which is an apt description, right? Excuse me. An apt description of so many things going on in your life. You feel like you're being ripped apart. I mentioned ministry. Honestly, there's times where, drawn and quartered, you know what that term means, right? The way of executing somebody in a very, very, very painful way in years past. Tie their left and right arms, left and right legs to 4 horses. They all go in different directions. I mean, that's a pretty painful way to be tortured and then die. Drawn and quartered. In life, at times you could feel like you got 100 horses pulling you all over the place, even your eyeballs, your nose, and your fingers and everything else. Thankfully, God is watching you today. Maybe that part would come easy for most people to figure out intellectually. But when God states, cast your anxieties on me, because it really does matter to me what becomes of you. Now, let me say this to you. One of the things that I've found helpful throughout the years in ministry is just always to be honest. Now, sometimes that works for me, and sometimes it works against me, but I still prefer to be honest. And I think I mentioned this. If it wasn't yesterday, it was recently. You have to understand that all of us, myself included, have the same or similar types of problems, challenges, temptations. No one is exempt. The only difference between people is who overcomes and who succumbs. Who gives up, surrenders, gives in, and who keeps going after one obstacle after the other and overcoming them. And we do it in Jesus' name. So, let me give you an example, just one. Being a cardiac patient isn't much fun. Having open heart surgery, I can guarantee you that was not fun. But, I don't know if I should mention this, but when I got home from having open heart surgery, 2008, October, on my daughter's birthday, I was a Thursday, Friday, Saturday. They let me go home on Sunday. Got home, Now remember, I'm all just ripped open. I got stitches all over, what do you call them, staples in my sternum, and kind of broke up and what have you. I waited till, now I gotta preface this and say, don't do this. Don't do this. I'm just trying to share with you my attitude towards life. And what I did was I waited till no one was home, and I sprinted up the stairs. Got back down to the bottom of the stairs. This is from the first floor to the second floor. And boom, I sprinted up the stairs again. Let me hasten to say that decision goes on the top of my list of the top 10 stupidest things I've ever done in my life. What I neglected, well, there's many things I neglected, but what I neglected at that moment was the fact that I've just been pulled apart, sewn back together again. The ribs have been, everything's pretty much, out of place, and very upset at the surgery. And boy, I tell you, I was in so much pain. Oh, I couldn't breathe. Not because my heart was bad, it's just that my ribs were killing me. Stupidest thing I ever did in my life. Don't do it. But the attitude towards that and I wasn't advised, ill-advised decision of mine was to put forward my philosophy of life, which is never play defense, always play offense. Once you find yourself in a position where you're playing defense, you're going to I'm not saying you're going to lose, but you're going to be in a position where you're not on the offense. What else can I say? You're not moving forward towards this thing. I've just made a decision today, or actually last night, that based on my recent stress test from yesterday, which, it wasn't all that great. It wasn't really bad, otherwise I wouldn't be sitting here. I'd be already in the cardiac unit, so let me get to that and say it wasn't all that bad. Didn't suit me, I'll say it that way. But what I just made a decision to do, I love my cardiologist. He's a great doctor, he's a great person, great man. All the staff, I get along with everybody, we tell jokes. I just decided I'm going to dial into a specific cardiologist in Albany and get a second opinion. So what's with that, and how does that apply to you were saying? How does that apply to me, Pastor Ray? Well, in this respect, first of all, as much as I really, really like my cardiologist, I consider him a friend, and the staff. I can call up his secretary anytime, the receptionist, and works with him, his assistant. And I need this, I need that. Boom, it's done, because we're friendly and we're friends. However, when it comes to my heart and my health, I'm responsible. And I've got to be satisfied with the answers or the solutions that my doctor's giving me. And there's nothing wrong with saying, just want to get a second opinion. So I called over there today and I explained, this is what I'm going to do, cancel the test that you got for me next month, or this month, and I'm going to get a second opinion, and I gave him the reasons why. I told him what was in my mind and why I'm going to this one specific doctor. And it was good. The receptionist said to me, "Oh, I hope we're not losing you as a patient." And I said, "No, I'm not planning on that. Just want to get another opinion. I want to see this from another point of view." So that's getting on the offense instead of sitting back playing defense and moping around. I'm talking about myself. Moping around, I didn't like what he said, I don't want to do this, I don't ever play defense. Only when maybe the situation is so overwhelming that I have no option but to play defense, but I'm always calculating how to get back on the offensive again. It's one of the reasons I don't want to retire. I don't want to be, I'm not saying retirement's wrong for some people, it's just not going to be good for me. I couldn't get up in the morning and figure out why am I even alive anymore. But then again, I'm in ministry, and it has taken me a long time to learn my trade, my calling, and I'm better for people now than I've ever been in my entire life. So retirement just doesn't, it's not for me. Also, my personality, I'll be scratching my head all the time saying, why does my life count? I'm not saying that's true of you. I'm saying it's true of me. And so I got to stay on the offense to make sure I stay healthy, to make sure things are in order. As I get advancing years, I got to make sure that things are done in order, because I can't keep up with some of the things that I did when I was younger. All right, so are you getting the picture how this applies to you? If you're not satisfied with the diagnosis that you've gotten from your doctor, get a second opinion. Don't have to leave your doctor. If you're seeing a psychiatrist, or if you're seeing a psychologist, or a Christian counselor, or a pastor, and you're not really happy with the results, get a second opinion. No big deal. With doctors in particular, it's only business. I don't. Even one doctor who's been a friend of my family, and I for over 30 years, still not doing it for free. So it's business. That's how I look at it. It's business. If I don't like the diagnosis, and then 3 doctors tell me all the same thing, then, well, all right. Okay, there's 2 or 3 witnesses, like the Bible says. But what I want to tell you today, life isn't fair. Fairy tale view of life is that I do good things and everything works out great, including the weather. Everything just comes my way. Truth of it is, the more righteous you live, the more demonic hostility you will incur. And as I did mention yesterday, the old adage, no good deed will go unrewarded, or rather unpunished. So much good goes unnoticed and unrewarded. You have to get on the offense. You can't sit around and let depression eat your lunch. When I was a kid, and again, I'm not recommending you do what I do. I'm just saying I grew up in a specific neighborhood. I'm of a specific ethnicity, and I grew up with a decision that I'm not going to run, I'm going to fight. And you know, people come say, give me your lunch money, and my responsibility, take it. They never did, or if they tried, they were never successful. I see life that way. As I said to you yesterday, either you eat life or life eats you. You're in a depression right now. Not likely that it's going to get better unless you really need rest, because sometimes that is a solution. It's not likely that you're going to get better playing defense, moping, complaining, which obviously with depression, that's what you do, mope. But you got to get on the offense. You got to start caring enough about your own health, mental health in this case, and it could be physical for so many of you as well, to say, I'm going to get on the offense here. I'm going to do things for myself that will satisfy me in the end, that the answers that I'm getting are good. I'm not necessarily good. I mean, they're all working there, and you got a lot of agreement, so okay. You know, let me just mention something here. I talked about a week or so ago, suicide. I talked to a man, very educated man, a friend of mine, who was Spec Ops for 50 years, before Spec Ops was even Spec Ops. We got talking one day, and we would share, you know, a lot of things, and I would tell him sometimes of issues that I had in my life. Man served at the Pentagon level, so I mean, he was very, very well experienced in dealing with men, commanding men, well, men and women, soldiers. And then, you know, one day he was just mentioning to me about exit strategies like you have in combat. If we get in there and this is too much, well, how do we get out? And he mentioned suicide. I said, suicide? It's not an option. He said, no, it is. I said, no, it's not. And we went back and forth a little bit on that issue. I said, that's not an option. And I just, again, I felt impressed today to say this to you, that don't ever think about it. That's not an option, suicide. Well, let me say again that neither is playing continual defense, just sitting around saying, boy, poor me. What's happened to me? Why me? Why did fate choose me? Just remember, from our point of view, life is not fair. From God's point of view, all things work together for the good of them that love God and to those who are the called according to his purpose. Read that in Romans 8:28. And it starts out by saying, and we know all things work together for good to them that love God and to those who are the called according to his purpose. Okay. Amtrak has scheduled another train because, hey, Pastor Ray's on the air, so let's do this and let's blow the horn for as long as we possibly can. Amazing. Not to mention that I've had a wild dog over here in front of me who's having a really good time while two people are almost entirely naked. But these are things that you can't see. Just like ministry, there's just things that you'll never see. All right. Let me pray for you today. Father, once again I pray for all of my friends that are now a part of this class who watch. Give them deliverance, give them peace, give them victory. I pray today in Jesus' name. Amen. And by the way, I do appreciate your prayers for me. Several of you have written to me and have told me that you're praying for me. Please do. I really appreciate that, and I do pray for you. So, if you're watching for the first time or you've watched a couple of times and you're interested in being part of this class, please subscribe, and then, as always, hit the notification button, and we'll be good. Okay? Hopefully, with God's blessing, I'll be with you here tomorrow, God willing, and the creek don't rise. I'll be here with you tomorrow on another lesson for God's answers for anxiety and depression. God bless you. See you tomorrow.